The AIDS pandemic is one of the most serious crises the world has ever faced. Since the beginning of the epidemic, more than 60 million people have contracted HIV, and nearly 30 million have died of HIV-related causes.
Both my mother and father died of AIDS when I was really young. I also had to watch my brother die of AIDS. It was slow, painful, and awful. He was the one that took really good care of me after both my parents died. And I really miss him.
With close to 34 million people in the world now carrying the HIV virus, and an estimated 2.7 million people newly infected each year, it's clear the world has not figured out how to stop this disease. So why, despite the billions of dollars being poured into AIDS prevention, have infection rates not significantly decreased? Dr. Edward Green, while director of the AIDS Prevention Research Project at Harvard, set out to answer this question, and the international community did not like what he found.
If sexual behavior is changed in the direction of more monogamy, infidelity, and more abstinence, it greatly brings down infection rates.
In Dr. Green's book, Broken Promises, How the AIDS Establishment Has Betrayed the Developing World, he says the research shows that the sexual rights approach to AIDS prevention, championed by the UN and Western donor countries, may actually be increasing the rate of infections, not bringing them down. And if he is right, millions have died unnecessarily.
When I was a young girl living in Mozambique, a documentary was made about my brothers and I because both of our parents died of AIDS. Meu pai morreu em 2001, passando algum tempo, 2002, morreu minha mãe, nós ficamos órfãos dos pais, não tinha nem mãe nem pai, ficamos sozinhos.
Passamos por um momento muito difícil, ficamos sozinhos em casa. É bastante grave.
Vivemos sem pai nem mãe. Sentíamos muito, ficávamos muito felizes, ficávamos humilhados, né? Por ver outros com mãe, sem pai, pá. É tristeza para nós, né?
Many of the people got involved in AIDS prevention initially in the US were working in themselves or were working in that community, and it almost sort of grew out of the gay rights movement. Most Africans have conservative attitudes towards sex. My own personal attitude happens to be more the liberal one. Most of the people who work in AIDS prevention adhere to a liberal attitude towards sexual behavior. When we're talking about vulnerable populations, we're talking about, among others, gay men, injecting drug users, and MSM.
Dr. Jonathan Mann, an American physician, is widely credited with organizing the United Nations worldwide fight against AIDS. He placed the struggle to end discrimination against men who have sex with men into the very foundation of global AIDS policies at the United Nations.
The historic significance of Jonathan's emphasis that we have to embed the response to AIDS in a human rights approach and not in a classic quarantine type of approach, he really set the tone for the years to come.
President Obama issued a directive to all U.S. government agencies that engage in international activities to make advancing LGBT rights a top priority.
We have done more in the 2.5 years that I've been in here than previous 43 presidents to uphold that principle.
The Obama administration defends the human rights of LGBT people as part of our comprehensive human rights policy and as a priority of our foreign policy.
For us, family stands at the heart of everything we do. We live for the family.
Gay rights are human rights, and human rights are gay rights.
We do not want any discrimination against anybody under any condition, whether sexual or otherwise. But we have to state clearly and forcefully that this concept stands against everything we stand for in Africa.
And because we have rights, governments are bound to protect them.
The issue of sexual orientation in the United Nations Human Rights System has not yet mustered consensus. All the previous attempts to integrate sexual orientation into existing universally recognized human rights have not been successful.
Recently, there was an announcement both by David Cameron and by President Obama that, they are willing to cut off aid to countries who do not recognize LGBT rights. No, we want to object to that as just being manipulation. Downright manipulation to get us to accept something, a lifestyle which is proven to be scientifically unhealthy, a lifestyle which is contrary to the religion and cultures of most of our people. We take great objection to this type of manipulation, and we wonder if the American people are aware of what is happening.
Okay, so what we're seeing is the LGBT agenda being pushed in like Arab state for aid money. You want aid money, then you must change your laws. These issues of gays and trans rights, transsexuals. This is a new form of imperialism, I must say, and it's surprising that the American government is at the forefront of that imperialism.
What is amazing is that these countries that are harassing us, smaller countries, in these countries, the rate of HIV/AIDS among the homosexual groups there, typified as MSMs, that rate is increasing, and not only so, it is said to be out of control. This is recorded in the scientific journals. The U.S. Center for Disease Control openly admits that although men having sex with men represent only 2% of the U.S. population, they account for approximately 60% of all new HIV infections and are 44 times more likely to be infected with HIV. And finally, they admit that men who have sex with men are, quote, the only risk group in which new HIV infections have been increasing steadily since the early 1990s. Why then would they want us to accept this type of lifestyle as being a healthy and wholesome lifestyle? One has to seriously question the intentions of President Obama and the other presidents across the world.
People are saying, because we have criminalized the LGBT activities, we don't have good governance. What is governance? In the United States, the states that allow same-sex marriages, and the other states that don't allow same-sex marriages, that's democracy. People have chosen, the people in those particular states have determined that the majority have spoken.
It's deception. There's no human rights based on behavior. All people are equal, but not all types of behavior are equal.
That's blackmail. And it's blackmail on a moral issue, on an issue that we're forcing governments, African governments, now to go into the village and explain to the people, you're getting money to build that borehole, you're getting money to bring water or electricity into your community simply because you're now going to allow children over here to marry newly.
We stand against violence to anybody in the community. We really stand against violence. At the same time, it does not mean that we have to accept the lifestyles of others.
I'm not saying that that I don't like homosexuals or lesbians or I love them, they're my brothers and sisters, but I do not like what they do. What we're emphasizing is that maintain your will of life while we maintain our own.
Well, the end result will be a deconstruction of the family system and the family structure in Jamaica. The third and perhaps most challenging issue arises when people cite religious or cultural values as a reason to violate or not to protect the human rights of LGBT citizens.
Christian values. I need to know our Christianity differently. It's not like you put on a coat and take it overnight. We are Christians, and that's Christianity. We adopted from the very same people now coming in and saying,
it usually starts, from what I've noticed, it starts with the repeal of the anti-sodomy laws, but it doesn't stop there. Once these laws are repealed, it then gives opportunity for persons to demand all the rights. Like, they get to the point where they demand marriage or civil unions. Then it gets to the point where churches, there is a demand for these unions to be solemnized in churches. It gets into the educational system. It gets to the point of where criticism of the lifestyle then becomes an offense, and people are fined for this type of thing.
And they come in to say, we must change our laws. It's actually to come in and say, what we told you about Christianity, what we told you about Islam is not true. The Bible maybe has to be cleansed in this case, because it's in the Bible, and you were told it's in the Bible, there's no witchcraft, you shouldn't have more than one wife, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, and homosexuality is wrong, lesbianism is wrong, a man should not be placed like a wife. Now to come in and say, we have to change. What platform really are we on to say that we must change?
Once you say anything remotely critical of the lifestyle in these countries, there is a problem. And so I'm concerned from my own country, which is a highly religious country. I'm concerned about the impact that this could have on freedom of speech.
I believe countries have got a right to protect themselves, to protect their citizens from these influences that are not of Africa, that are not of our communities.
I was shocked to realize that some months ago in Pakistan, the US ambassador there announced gay party, a party for all local homosexuals. I felt that that was an affront to the Pakistani people, and I just wondered how insensitive could one get? Isn't that just the total disregard of the culture of a people?
In 2011, the UN Special Rapporteur on the Right to Education issued a report to the UN. This report claimed that children have a right to comprehensive sexuality education that, among other things, will abolish guilt feelings about eroticism, include homosexual education, and make students aware of their sexual rights, such as the right to sexual pleasure.
It's about starting when we're with children about the expectation of roles, and we need to start there.